Have you ever grabbed a burger and thought, fast food is such a modern thing? Well, you'd be wrong. Because 700 years ago, peasants were eating hot, ready-made meals faster than you can order a Big Mac today. No electricity, no refrigeration, no golden arches glowing in the dark. And yet, they built a food system so efficient it could feed an entire city before sunrise. So how did medieval people create the world's first fast food empire? And how did they keep millions alive without a single refrigerator? Let's step into a 14th century marketplace and see what they knew that we've forgotten. Walking through a medieval town at noon was like stepping into a living food court. The air was thick with smoke and spice, with vendors shouting over each other, each trying to sell the hottest pie, the freshest bread, the richest ale. They fought for the best spots near churches and city gates, places where hungry pilgrims, merchants, and nobles all collided. Location was everything, even then. If you wanted to make a fortune, you didn't need a billboard. You just needed the right smell. Because in medieval cities, aroma was advertising. One whiff of roasting meat could stop a night mid-charge. Fresh bread sent invisible trails through the streets, pulling people in like a magnet. Marketers today spend millions chasing what these street cooks mastered 800 years ago. Smell sells. But here's the dark side. Without refrigeration, spoiled food didn't just ruin your appetite. It killed you. Food poisoning in the 1400s didn't come with a refund. It came with a funeral. So, medieval vendors developed one golden rule. Cook it fresh, sell it fast, or make it last. By the 1400s, cities like London and Paris had hundreds of these food stalls, packed so tightly together that a single marketplace could feed thousands of people a day. Some historians even call it the first version of McDonald's meets open-air bazaar. But medieval fast food wasn't chaos. It was regulated. City officials had strict food laws, checking weights, quality, and freshness. Get caught selling rotten meat, and you lose more than your day's profit. In some towns, bakers caught cheating were branded, fined, or had their hands chopped off. Talk about severe customer feedback. As the sun rose, bakers lit their fires before dawn. By the time church bells rang, the first loaves were ready, steaming heavy, alive with yeast. An hour later, butchers fired their grills. And soon, the entire marketplace pulsed like a medieval heartbeat. A rhythm of chopping, sizzling, shouting, and selling. But if you couldn't refrigerate food, you had to outsmart time itself. That's where the true medieval geniuses stepped in, and the tricks they invented still shape what you eat today. Salt, the miracle of the Middle Ages. Today, we shake it casually over fries. But 700 years ago, this white crystal was worth more than gold. People were literally paid in salt. That's where the phrase, worth your salt, comes from. A slab of meat that would rot in 2 days could last half a year once buried in salt. It worked like magic, pulling moisture out, killing bacteria, and turning fresh pork into something that could survive a crusade. Medieval butchers became masters of preservation. They rubbed salt into every crevice of meat, sometimes mixing in herbs or spices for flavor and extra longevity. The result? Jerky tough enough to survive a siege and still taste like victory. Pickling came next, the sour science of survival. Vinegar turned vegetables, eggs, even fish into food that laughed at time itself. The acid stopped bacteria cold, and people discovered that pickled foods didn't just last longer, they tasted better. Cabbage, onions, cucumbers, if it grew, they pickled it. And here's the twist. Those sharp, tangy flavors became delicacies. They didn't just preserve food, they invented flavor. Inside cool, damp cellars, massive ceramic jars bubbled quietly, the original refrigerators of the Middle Ages. And while common folk relied on pickles and salted meat, the real power lay with the salt merchants. They controlled trade routes, guarded shipments, and grew richer than kings. Because gold might buy luxury, but salt bought survival. Salt, vinegar, and ingenuity kept people alive. But what if you wanted your food to travel? That's where the next breakthrough came. A revolution wrapped in dough. It didn't come in paper. It came in pastry. They called them coffins. not because they buried the dead in them, but because they buried food. Medieval bakers had discovered something revolutionary. If you wrap hot meat inside a thick, rock-hard shell of dough, you can seal freshness inside time itself. These weren't sweet pies like Grandma makes. They were portable power meals. Imagine a traveler riding from London to York, 3 days of mud, rain, and hunger, and still tearing open a pie that's as fresh as the day it was baked. The crust was so thick, it was often inedible. A disposable medieval lunchbox. Eat the filling, toss the crust of the dogs. Early fast food packaging. 600 years ahead of its time. But it wasn't wasteful, because that crust did the job of a refrigerator. It locked out air, sealed in fat, and kept the meat preserved for weeks. Chicken pies, beef pies, pork pies. Even luxury versions stuffed with hard-boiled eggs and herbs. Wealthy nobles ordered them shaped like castles, animals, even hearts, each crust decorated like a work of art. Meanwhile, workers bought simple hand pies, the medieval hot pocket. Vendors known as pie men roamed the streets, carrying wooden trays, calling out to customers leaving church or guild halls. No carts, no wrappers, just hot food in your hands. They understood the golden rule of any business. Sell where the hunger walks. Bread and beer. Those were the other pillars of the medieval fast food empire. Every morning before dawn, bakers worked by candlelight, kneading dough until their arms ached. By sunrise, the smell of bread filled the streets, a scent so powerful it could pull entire crowds toward the ovens. But don't picture fluffy white loaves. Medieval bread was dense, dark, and heavy enough to stop a door. You didn't slice it, you used it. People hollowed out old bread to make bowls for stew and porridge. It was both plate and meal. Bakers were part of strict guilds that enforced quality control. Cheat the customer with underweight bread, you'd be paraded through town with your loaves hung around your neck in shame. It wasn't just business, it was public theater. Then came beer, the unofficial drink of survival. Forget coffee, forget soda. In the Middle Ages, beer was breakfast, not because everyone was partying, but because water could kill you faster than a sword. Boiling, fermenting, and brewing made it safe. Even children drank small beer, light, low-alcohol versions made for daily life. Monks brewed it, workers demanded it as part of their pay, and taverns sold it beside chunks of bread and salted meat. It was the first combo meal, portable, filling, and safe. A gallon a day wasn't unusual. Though before you get jealous, remember, it was weaker, cloudier, and often your only safe drink. But let's talk flavor. Because medieval cooks weren't just surviving, they were engineering taste. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, cloves, and turmeric were the secret weapons of preservation and pleasure. Salt pulled the moisture out of meat. Pepper's natural oils kill bacteria. Cinnamon could keep fruit from rotting for months. They didn't know the chemistry. They just knew it worked. Those simple discoveries changed everything. Suddenly, preserving food wasn't just about staying alive. It was about making it delicious. Some of these spices were so precious that people literally fought wars for them. The spice routes became lifelines, and salt merchants turned into medieval billionaires. Because gold might make you rich, but pepper made you immortal. Then came fermentation, the invisible miracle. Picture a medieval woman packing cabbage in a jar, adding salt, and walking away. She didn't know it, but she just hired an army of microscopic workers. Those bacteria transformed fresh vegetables into sauerkraut, a food that could last all winter and heal your gut at the same time. The same process turned milk into cheese, fish into delicacies, and grain into the beer that kept whole towns alive. It was science before science existed. Each jar, each wheel of cheese, each barrel of ale was a tiny, bubbling biotech lab, run entirely by instinct and faith. Some cheeses aged for years, growing sharper, harder, more valuable. So valuable, people use them as currency. In some regions, you could pay rent with cheese. Imagine handing your landlord a wheel of cheddar and calling it even. Even the Vikings mastered the art, fermenting shark meat so it could survive Arctic winters. Sure, It smelled like a corpse left in a gym bag, but it could keep a man alive through months of darkness. And then came the traders, the medieval delivery drivers of the known world. Merchants rode from Constantinople to Beijing, carrying not just fabrics and gold, but recipes, preserved fish from the east, salted pork from the west, fermented sauces from every shore. They were building the first global menu. The Silk Road wasn't just about silk. It was about flavor. Techniques learned from Arabic traders mixed with European traditions, turning the medieval world into one massive, centuries-long cooking show. Each port, each caravan stop, each monastery kitchen added something new, and by the 15th century, the medieval food system was an international network of survival and taste. So next time you bite into a sandwich or crack open a can of beer, remember this. You're living inside the dream of a medieval peasant, a world built by the first fast food pioneers who learned how to conquer time, hunger, and distance, all with salt, fire, and faith. Candle, this was the Medieval Files. If you enjoyed this journey through forgotten history, don't just leave hungry. Subscribe for more stories from the past that built the world you live in today.